Good evening, and thank you for attending this Facebook Live. My name is David Sidwick, and I'm the Police and Crime Commissioner for Dorset. This event was set up in response to feedback from you, the public, asking questions about public safety in the BCP area, and specifically around the tragic death of Amy Gray in Bournemouth on the 24th of May. Our thoughts and condolences are very much with her family, and we also recognise that there was another victim there who thankfully survived. Now, due to the ongoing investigation for this case, we cannot and will not be discussing the case this evening. This event has been set up for the BCP community to ask questions, raise issues, tell us how they feel, and for us here on the panel to listen and work out how best we can work together to tackle the issues and problems you raise here with us tonight. We're very clear, and I understand that people's feelings and that there is work to do to restore public confidence. The BCP area is a safe place, but tragedies such as the death of Amy Gray make people feel safe and more wary. So if you do feel unsafe, we want to know why. We want to know where you feel unsafe in the BCP area. And then we'll look into what we can do, what more we can do to address those problems. During this Facebook Live, we will give you facts and figures in our responses and tell you more about the work that has been happening and will be happening across BCP to keep people safe. But we all recognise that statistics do not stand up when we are talking about how people feel. And that's why we're here listening to you tonight. Now, I'd like to introduce Mark Callaghan, who's the Assistant Chief Constable. He'll host the evening. He'll introduce the other members of the panel and direct the questions that come in to make certain that the right member of the panel will give the answers according to their expertise. This gives the panel a chance to consider the question and give you the best answer. Finally, and before I pass over the reins to Mark, I'd like to remind everyone joining, and particularly making comments online, that there has been a tragic death in our community. A daughter, wife, and mother has been taken from a loving family, and I'd like us all to be respectful of that fact. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, David. And good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining us tonight. As David says, my name is Mark Callaghan. I'm an Assistant Chief Constable with Dorset Police. I've got responsibility for local police in crime and criminal justice, but tonight I'm going to be facilitating this session for our communities. So first off, I'd like to introduce Heather Dixie, who's just going to give a little bit of information about her role before I bring in the BCP local authority. Heather, over to you.
Thank you, sir. So good evening, everybody. My name is Heather Dixie, and I am the Chief Superintendent for Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole local policing area. So in effect, I have the responsibility for our policing response for everything across the whole of the conurbation, from local policing through to investigations. I'm also the chair of the Local Community Safety Partnership, which is a group of people such as health, education, fire, probation, and the local authority, where we have a legal responsibility to come together to address community safety within the local area. So that is my role here tonight, and I'll be answering obviously questions with regards to the policing response, but recognising that we work very closely with the local authority on a lot of the issues that may well be raised this evening. So if I can hand over to Gillian next, if I may.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you to Dorset Police for arranging this and for inviting BCP Council to take part in the event this evening. The last couple of weeks have been a really difficult time for the town, and the thoughts of everyone at the council have been with the family and friends of Amy Gray and with the woman who was seriously injured and with her loved ones too. Incidents like this one are thankfully very rare, but we know the impact that they can have for the whole community. And as we're looking ahead to the summer, we want to use this evening to hear your concerns and to respond to them. For those of you who are residents, we want to reassure you that this is a safe place to live and to work. And for our visitors, we welcome around 10 million visitors every year. The vast, vast majority of people who come here are able to enjoy the area and everything it has to offer without experiencing any crime. Before we go on to take questions, there's one thing I want to explain. We're approaching a general election in a few weeks' time, and we've just started what's called the pre-election period. This is a sensitive time before any election where there are restrictions on the council's communications in public, and those restrictions also apply to our colleagues in the police. This means that we can only give quite factual answers to your questions. We're not able to get into discussions about politically controversial issues, and there may be some questions we're not able to answer this evening. Those restrictions are also why there are no councillors here on the panel this evening to answer your questions, but Kelly, Sophie and I, as officers from the council, will answer all the questions we possibly can alongside our colleagues in Dorset Police. And as I said at the beginning, everyone's thoughts at the council have been on all those affected by this tragic incident. And our focus now, more than ever, across the council is on the vital work we do every day, along with the police, to ensure people are safe and feel safe, and that everyone can enjoy what this area has to offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Gillian. And thanks also to Sophie and Kelly for being here this evening as well. So I think if we can get the first question up, if we can, so that we can look to start answering some questions for those online. So first question from Dan Short. I like the idea of police officers on the buses as they have a learning disability. It makes me feel safe. I think actually that's probably a good one, first off, maybe to come to the local authority on. I think perhaps, is it Sophie, did you want to try and answer that question?
Yeah, thanks Mark. So my name's Sophie Sajic, I'm the Head of Public Protection at BCP Council. Since January of this year, we have launched a pilot out on the Moorbus network, launching CSAS officers onto the public transport network. We have received some grant funding to support that, and we have a really visible presence out in our communities on the buses. So we already run a CSAS service. So for those of you that aren't aware, CSAS is the Community Safety Accreditation Scheme. Officers have limited but targeted police powers, but they are employed by the local authority. And we've enhanced that scheme out of our town centres and into the wider conurbation by going on our key buses and in our key transport routes. So it has been really successful so far. We have seen some really positive outputs, and just thank you to the commenter on letting us know their feelings about it. And we are running that pilot until at least March of 2025. So you will continue to see our officers out and about on the buses, tackling any antisocial behaviour that they come across, but also just offering that reassuring presence as well.
Thanks, Sophie, for answering that question. We'll go to the next question then, please. So this one's Jen Chumley. Wait times when calling or emailing 101 are extremely long. What do you plan, or what plans do you have to reduce the waiting times? Heather, are you able to reply to that one?
Yes, so obviously we have a 101, and we have our single online home, which is the reporting mechanism that members of the public may use to contact us online with any reports of crime or any concerns, or indeed intelligence that they might want to intelligence. When I say intelligence, information about things that they might have or they know that's going on in the community that they wish to inform us about, such as drug dealing, antisocial behaviour, etc. We recognise that the wait for 101 is a national issue around policing response. It is very much a priority, as I know it is for the PCC, around bringing those wait times down. We have restructured within our Force Command Centre, where we have now put in additional staff within there as well. And obviously it takes some time to recruit some of those staff to get into those roles and train them to be able to do that. But we now have a lot more staff than we used to, and we are working through to be able to get to answer those calls as quickly as possible. We recognise there's still some work for us to do within that area, but it is very much a priority, and our aim is to bring down that wait time as much as we possibly can.
Thanks, Heather. David, if I could bring you in, because I think this is an area that we definitely have lots of discussions about across the force with yourself as well, and you hold us to account for. So, David, anything you want to add?
Yes, thank you very much indeed. I know that this is an issue and of concern to the public. It's something which has been worked on. We are improving. There is more investment going in, as Heather described. There's also something else as well, which is the use of single online home. A lot of the use of 101 is to give intelligence to the force. If it's possible and you can use an online system, then please use the single online home. And there is now an intelligence button on the front page of that, which actually will allow you to supply intelligence. A lot of what people want to tell us is about things that they see rather than being a victim of crime. And that's a really useful way of doing that, which would free up the phones for those who don't have that capability. So I hope that helps as well.
Great, thanks, David. And members of the public can also, as well as the through the single online home, through the websites, there's also to pass intelligence to us. You can also use the Crime Stoppers website as well, which then gets intelligence directly to us as well. And they've got a hotline as well that you can use for intelligence purposes. So thank you. Right, shall we go on for the next question, please? So, question, apologies, I think it's Thomas Graham, but if I've got that wrong and it's Graham Thomas, then please, apologies from me. But your question, it's quite easy from your perspective, more police on the beat would help. So, Heather, if I was to come to you first in regards to our policing activity that we're doing, and then I'll see if others want to come in as well.
Yes, absolutely. So, yes, we recognise that the public really do like seeing police officers on the beat. They feel absolutely reassured by that. And it is very much a view that I share with you. And it's something that I've been working very hard over the past the year since I've been in this role to try and uplift that as best we can. Now, we have a marked uplift in police officers across Dorset, but also within my area of command through the Uplift programme, we've seen and recruited quite a number of officers over the past few years. Now we're going through that training process and they're all starting to undertake their roles within the local area. We have many ways to respond to the public. So yes, we have to be in vehicles sometimes because we have to cross a large geographic area to be able to respond to the public. But we have also invested and committed to having a more visible policing response on foot. So we're doing that through our local neighbourhood policing teams, which we've uplifted and enhanced the numbers in those areas as well, particularly over the last 6 months. A case in point of that is in the Bournemouth town centre. We recognised that was a real area that needed some focus. So I've uplifted officers in that. And in fact, I will be going further to add 6 additional officers in the Bournemouth town centre. So we do have that really overt policing presence on foot in the real key areas. So I'm talking about the square, the gardens, they're already there, but we're adding more officers in that to really reassure the public, hopefully, that actually the area is safe. If they see that visible presence, that makes you feel a lot safer. Crime is still low within that area. I'll reaffirm that we are the seventh safest county within the country, but absolutely recognise that the public feel unsafe in some particular areas. So certainly Bournemouth Town Centre is an area that we have a focus on, and working with the local authority, which they may well come in as well around how they're providing a supportive response to policing and social behaviour in that area. But I talk wider, the whole of the conurbation area, the local neighbourhood teams are actively trying to get out into their communities with the resources that we have. Specific areas that you really would like to see that, but you feel that actually you're feeling really quite unsafe, then please do let us know, because I can really look at that within my policing response activity to really sort of have a look at those areas with the local authority as well, and where we can provide that extra additional support.
Great, thanks, Heather. Heather, just before you go, obviously you've talked about neighbourhoods there and frontline policing.
Yes.
What other sort of assets do we have across?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the wider force response. So I don't police alone, and neither do the police officers and police staff. I remember, we have PCSOs as well that work across our local area, but we have a force response. So if and when we have incidents and we need support, we can call upon our firearms team, who are police officers. They just happen to have a firearm, that they as a resource that they can use. We have dog patrol officers, we have traffic officers, and we have force support groups as well, which are a team of officers that work across the whole of the county and come into areas that need that additional support. So we have a vast number of officers that we can call upon that can come in and support the area as well if we need it. So I'll go back to saying that let us know those areas that if we are not, or you feel that it's not getting that particular support, and we can work with you on that.
Great, thanks Heather for that clarity. David, I'm sure you've got something you'd like to add to this as well from your perspective.
Yes, just a little bit. I'm gratified to hear that we're getting more officers in the town centre on top of what we've already got. It's really important that we understand that the increase in officers, the majority of those are going into the community. But there is something else here about visibility that I just like to make certain that we're also addressing. Because it isn't just about having the officers, it's not just about having the officers patrol, it's about making that visible to the public. Because we know that the number of people who will see those officers may be relatively small. They can't patrol every day, every hour. It is about making that visibility also count. And that's just something I want to make certain we've got on the agenda.
Great, thanks, David. And Sophie, from a local authority, we work in harmony with partnerships. Do you want to come in and just provide a bit of context about the visibility from your perspective of community safety?
Yeah, so as a local authority, we support a large amount of the visible policing that the police do. But we, as I said earlier, we have a core CSAS team, so they do work within our town centre locations. They do have, as I said earlier, limited but targeted police powers, but they work within the police stations. They are part of the neighbourhood policing teams, benefiting from the same information, the same intelligence, and the lines of communication in for escalation points. So the CSAS team will deal with antisocial behaviour on the streets. They'll deal with street drinking. They'll deal with aggressive begging. They're a really visible, proactive presence that cover our town centre locations. We also operate the conurbation-wide CCTV service. So we have over 1,200 cameras in our public areas and in our key assets that are monitored 24 hours a day. We have got eyes across the entirety of the conurbation, and that CCTV footage is absolutely critical in supporting the work that we do as a partnership around the prevention and detection of crime. So we do a lot of work together as a partnership, obviously, as we're all here together this evening. And it's for all of us to try and be as visible as we possibly can with the resources that we've got available to us.
Great. Thanks very much, Sophie, for adding that wider context into sort of a partnership. I'm hoping that answered the last question in sufficient detail for you. Can we have the next question brought forward, please? Great. So from Janice Yates. So I live in St Michael's Road, and I am very worried about this area. I'm a pensioner and live alone, but I'm very anxious. If I could perhaps maybe come to Heather first for a policing response in relation to St Michael's Road.
So St Michael's Road, I think it's obviously in Bournemouth, up in the Westcliff area. So thank you, Janice, for raising that, and I'm sorry that you feel that way. What I want to reassure you is, that area is very much part of some ongoing work that we have. So we've got a Home Office initiative that we have undertaken, committed to, called Clear Hole Build, and I'll explain that to you really. It's where the police and local authority work together to really target specific criminality and antisocial behaviour within those areas. So we have a real focus. Now, over the past couple of months, we've focused on that, and already we have targeted 11 persons to date within that area and removed them from that local area who are committing criminality. Now, we continue to really target there, and there are some other areas as well, but St Michael's Road is one of them. And then we move into the area what we call hold, where we try and keep that criminality out, and then we move into a build phase where it's very much a partnership approach with the local authority of how we can regenerate that area to prevent any sort of criminality sort of coming back into the area. So St Michael's is part of that. So I do anticipate that you will see some changes as we continue this work. over the next sort of 6 to 12 months as we work that. This is a long-term program. We don't just want to go in, make some arrests, disappear, and then you don't see any change. This is a long-term where we want to see real improvement within the area that you live for yourselves and local residents. It's also part of another operation around hotspot policing, and when I say that, it's where you have dedicated resources that are patrolling in those particular areas, and they are on foot within those areas as well. So again, that has been in place for the past 2 months and will continue over the next year. So hopefully that will give you some reassurance that your area is very much focused for the local policing team. And again, this brings in force-wide resources to that area as well, to really give us a focus. But it's very much a joint approach with in partnership to really regenerate the area. So hopefully that will assure you that we will be working to try and bring that down and make you feel a lot safer over the next year and beyond.
Heather, could you just clarify about hotspot policing
Yes,
for those that are listening? Just what is that, and why do that people's areas?
Hotspot policing is where we have an evidence-based approach. So this is where the community will tell us that area is a real area of concern for them, where they feel that there is criminality happening, where they feel they're witnessing certain things happen, they feel unsafe. So through those reports, we then obviously build that. We recognise that a lot of the community are telling us things, and that to us, that's to the local authority. It is also where we have reported crimes. It's not just the community telling us they feel unsafe or seeing things. It's we have reported crimes and ASB. So we bring all of that information together, and that will then geographically tell us that we have an area that is a hotspot for activity. So we've done that. We've mapped that across the force on what the community are telling us, which is why it's so important that you report either online or through 101 or to your local community, to the local authority, what you're seeing and feeling. It's so important that you do that. And therefore, we put the policing response into those areas. And the St Michael's Road area is one of those that we've listened to the community, we've reviewed crime reports, etc. And it showed as an area that we needed to focus on.
Great, thank you. And Sophie, are you able to come in and just talk from a local authority how we work in partnership in those areas as well?
Yeah, so BCP Council and Legacy Bournemouth Council have had a lot of involvement in that area over the years. We do still have some running targeted enforcement. So public protection as a service does cover antisocial behaviour CCTV, but it also covers environmental health, trading standards, environmental protection, which is residential environmental health, so things like noise complaints, accumulations, those types of things, as well as private sector housing, how we regulate and make sure that conditions around accommodation are suitable as well, including mandatory house in multiple occupation HMO licensing. So as a service, we've got quite a big enforcement directory, and we do a lot of work in that area. What I would also add is that we have recently installed 13 CCTV cameras into the West Hill area. They have been done in the last couple of months. They are all fully operational. As I said earlier, our CCTV across the conurbation is monitored 24 hours a day. And the new cameras in that area have already helped prove effective in the crime disorder world. So there's a lot of joint work in that area that is continuing. And if the commenter wants to make contact directly with me to discuss any direct concerns in regard to the work that we do as a local authority, they're more than welcome to do so by email.
Great, thank you, Sophie. And I'll just reiterate there, whilst we'll get the next question up, just around the importance of telling us what you're seeing, information intelligence. And often we see people reporting on WhatsApp groups that are built in community, but we don't see that and have a footprint. So it's really important you tell us through 101, through the local authority websites, through Crime Stoppers, etc., or through our websites about that information intelligence. And that information intelligence has supported us in things like our Ops Scorpion, which is branded around our response intelligence across the whole of the southwest region around organised criminality, drugs, etc. And St Michael's has operated a significant amount in that area to make sure we're targeting as much as we possibly can. So Claire Taylor's got the next question. We need more police patrolling Bournemouth Square and the gardens. It does not feel safe as groups of drug addicts, drinkers and homeless hanging around. And you first, and then we'll go to Heather, just to talk about some of the work around the homelessness work that's been going on. and then I'll come to Heather for the policing aspect.
So the one thing I would add is around the public space protection order that we've got in place across the conurbation, but that does operate within Bournemouth Central. So public spaces protection orders are orders which limit the usage of public spaces, and it's purely around negative behaviours. So there is an alcohol-related PSPO that is in place. It's currently just been extended until 2027. It does not make it an offence to drink alcohol in these areas, but what it does is make it an offence to fail to surrender your alcohol when asked to do so by an authorised officer. And what that looks at is street-related antisocial behaviour that's attributed to alcohol-related disorder. It allows our CSAS officers, our PTSOs, the police officers to confiscate alcohol and also look at breaches of the PSPO if somebody doesn't comply. So we have a lot of joint working around that PSPO, and we also look at making sure that evidence of antisocial behaviour is something that we will look at gathering the evidence of it long term, to look at formal orders, to look at prevention work, and also to look at the vulnerabilities around people. We understand that a number of people do have vulnerabilities when it comes to alcohol, and it's about making sure the right support is in place, as well as making sure those negative behaviours are managed. And as a partnership, we do that really well. Kelly, I don't know if you want to add anything in around the homelessness piece of work.
Yes, thank you. Hi everybody, my name is Kelly Dean and I am the Director of Housing and Communities at BCP Council. I just wanted to mention, as Sophie's already covered, there's an awful lot of work that happens in relation to managing behaviours, negative behaviours in the town centre, and we really make sure that we balance our approach to dealing with quite vulnerable people with often very complex needs, with absolutely prioritising support, as well as dealing with potentially taking enforcement action where needed. There's an awful lot of work happening across BCP in relation to tackling homelessness. We have a really active homelessness partnership. We're part of the Homewards initiative with the Royal Foundation, which is sponsored by Prince William, and the goal of that is to end homelessness. So there is a really ambitious set of plans around dealing with those sorts of issues, and there is support available for people who find themselves in those circumstances. Information is available on our website, and if you're interested in understanding about what happens in BCP from a partnership perspective and seeing more of that detail, there's a really good Facebook site, which is the Homeless Partnership Group. Thanks.
And Kelly, just on homelessness, often people only refer to homelessness as those people that might be living on the streets, but the work around the homelessness, just give a bit of detail, it's wider than just that, isn't it? It's about the wider community.
Absolutely. Homelessness can affect anybody at any point. Unfortunately, we've seen an increase in those sorts of issues as a result of cost of living crisis. We're seeing, lots of people in very different circumstances who are facing those sorts of difficulties. So the very visible kind of end of homelessness is what you see in terms of people who might be sleeping out on the street. And we have very active every single day from very, very early in the morning, assertive outreach to support those people and to engage with them. But there's a huge amount of support that the local authority and other providers and partners provide in relation to preventing homelessness, making sure that we're tackling the root causes of homelessness and that we're adequately responding. And that can be for families as much as it is for single people who people might typically see out on the streets.
Thanks. Really appreciate it, Kelly, just giving a bit extra context and detail. Obviously, the other question here linked to this point, Heather, was around that policing response, etc. I'll hand over to you just to give a bit of detail before we take the next question.
Yes, absolutely. So we recognised that the town centre needed some focus. So this is why we collaborated with the local authority around sort of how we could really pool our resources or what activity to make the greatest impact together. So back in August last year, we launched what was called the Town Team, where you have a dedicated local policing team and the local authorities, the community safety accredited officers who work together every day to be that visible presence in Bournemouth Town Centre. and it's got off to a good start, but we recognise more. It still needs to be done, which is why I've said I'm going to be investing an additional 6 officers into that area to really sort of to make further impact. But I mean, I don't want to go into too much data because I know people don't particularly find it attractive or interesting. But you know, just since March this year, the town team alone have already searched 46 people. They've arrested over 60 people within that area with 13 charges. We've dispersed and sent out of the area 38 people, and this is just in the past couple of months. We've got 3 criminal behaviour orders doing that. We've obviously completed over 300 hours of foot patrol for the hotspot policing initiative that I just spoke to you about. And we obviously then have an operation within the nighttime economy where you have dedicated 20 officers on foot within that in the evening around the areas where you have the most sort of alcohol drinking areas, which we have seen a marked decrease in antisocial behaviour and criminal and violence within that as a result of that real visible presence. So those numbers have come down. So there is a great amount of activity that has happened. We've engaged with over 500 businesses within that time as well. And we've also arrested over 23 prolific shoplifters for 312 offences. So that's a small snapshot of what we have done locally within the town centre. And we try to communicate that as best we can with the people that are visiting and doing the area. And hopefully an event such as this will really, you know, let people know the activity that's happening. But my commitment is that I want to do more. We want the area to feel safer to those who live and are visiting the area, because I live here too. I have family and children here too. So it's very much important that we continue to that work within the town centre. I hope that answers some of those questions.
Thanks, Heather. That's really good. Thank you. I'm conscious we've got lots of questions being asked, so we'll swiftly move on to the next question. So, question from Ben Morgan. Thank you for arranging the live event. I run a business in the town centre, have experienced issues and have received help, so thank you. But can I make a suggestion from living and working in Bournemouth town centre? Street drinking is a huge issue and a basis for antisocial behaviour, especially in the square, Lower Gardens and Old Christchurch Road. Can something be done over this? And not just action, then people cross the line, would really help clean the area up. Sophie, is that something you want to come into around?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, we do have a public spaces protection order in place, and that is around the street drinking. So that can be found on our website. It is something we work on together. So, you know, I'm sure Heather will come in shortly around some of the policing powers that we've got around antisocial behaviour. We work really, really closely on it, and it's not just about action, it's about preventative action as well. So having that visible uniform presence, both us and the police, is really, really key, but also utilising the powers that we've got around the Antisocial Behaviour Crime and Policing Act to make sure that we are going from a really early stage. So, you know, we've got early intervention notices, we've got support pathways that we want to make sure that people are going into, and within any enforcement action that we take, we can put in positive requirements that help people gain that support when they might not want to engage with it to begin with. So it is very much a process that we need to follow. There have been questions around public spaces protection orders and whether we ban alcohol as a whole. Now, we have to be mindful that, you know, our public spaces are for all of us to enjoy. You know, our residents want to go and enjoy our public spaces. It might be that people want to go and have a picnic and a glass of wine. And we need to be mindful about making sure that people can go and enjoy those public spaces when they don't potentially have a garden of their own. But it's about the behaviours that we deal with when we look at the enforcement side of things. And it's about making sure that negative behaviours are managed. And that's what the legislation allows us to do. So it's a much bigger picture, and it is that support and enforcement piece, and it is about proportionate action. And from the public spaces protection order side of things, we do have to be really proportionate in what we stop people doing within our public spaces to make sure that it is about enjoyment for our much wider community as well.
Great, thanks, Sophie. And Heather, I think if you're able to come in, just give an update on some of the work in the 100 days over the summer, and mention around the beaches as well, obviously, the work you're doing there.
So hopefully people might have seen in the local press, we released recently that we've called it the Camp Bobs in the town centre and in particular the beaches. We recognise again there's some feeling from the local community about the beaches being safe. So to respond to that, yes, the beaches are safe for people to visit. We recognise there has been some elements of crime committed down there, and we've really taken some positive action around that. So if you look at our social media, if you look in the press, we will be advertising to you on a daily basis that the officers are on foot patrol in those areas. They have a visible presence under the banner of 100 days of summer. We have got plans throughout the entire summer period to patrol the beaching area alongside, say, the operations in the evening around the nighttime economy, all the way through from, say, 9 o'clock in the morning right through to late at night. There should be presence around the beaches and the town centre and the licensed areas throughout the next forthcoming months through the real peak summer period, and then we will continue that beyond.
Great, thanks, Heather. Right, let's get to the next question then, if we may. Great. So, Mark Dean, why are police holding static locations in Bournemouth town at night? Not many people will cause issues knowing police are watching. Surely officers actually walking or patrolling cars is far more productive. Police and response. Seriously, police and no response. Heather, do you want to come in on this one?
Yeah, so that is our policing response. We've got an operation. So again, if you look on Police Love an operation name, but if you look on our social media accounts, we call it Operation Nightjar. So that is where on a Friday and Saturday, particularly evening, this is where we have a dedicated policing response. So we can have in excess of 20 officers. Yes, they do. They are in static locations, but they do foot patrol as well. And the reason that is I go back to where the hotspot policing, we have looked at the data, the reporting from the licensed establishments, the reporting data from what people in the community are telling us, and the crimes that have been committed, that we know those key areas of where that is happening. So that is why you'll see those officers in those visible places. And yes, they will be walking. There is a real clear academic research evidence that tells us that that is the most effective way to bring down crime in those hotspot areas, by having that visible presence. And as you've said in your question, they're not going to commit crime if they see a police officer. So that is what is happening. That we have seen a reduction in crime because of the presence of those police officers, and they'll continue to be in there. But yes, they will be on those static locations, but walking up and down within those areas, because we know that is where most of the crime has traditionally been happening, and we are seeing a reduction because of that.
Thanks. I think it's important though, they're not just there for the wider violence that might take place as a result of nighttime crime, but they're also about identifying vulnerability, aren't they, Heather?
Absolutely. So again, I know people might talk around violence against women and girls in there. So that is around that reassurance. So they are there to arrest people if crimes happen, of course. They're there for the reassurance. They're there to prevent crime. But they are also really key because they will watch the public. They will watch for behaviours in people that might be causing alarm, that might make people feel vulnerable, that might prevent a crime further happening later on in the evening. So they are there to then go and intervene at that point to try and understand and help anybody who may be vulnerable within that area. And that goes into our wider operations that we have around violence on women and girls, where we do take action within nightclubs, within those areas where we are able to identify vulnerable people and potentially predatory offenders through the activity of work. I don't want to go into too much detail around how we do that, but that activity is taking place within there. So that is very much a priority for us, the visible response around crime, reassurance, but we're also actively watching people's behaviours as well to prevent any sort of serious sexual offences that may or may not happen.
Great, thanks, Heather. And whilst we've got the next question up, I think you mentioned operational names there, and we do like a good operational name in policing. But actually what it means is that those officers tasked to those areas under that operation name know exactly what's required of them, what the operation is about and what the priority is about. So from our policing perspective, it's about being really clear what our expectations are from those staff. So the next question's from Nicola Newman, and how is the VORG strategy measured and reported on to the public? So Heather, is this one that you're able to?
Yeah, I can, and I'll bring Kelly in within that. So certainly from a policing perspective, Dorset Police asked to be and wants to be part of, again, an operation. It's a national operation called Soteria Bluestone, where we partake and we work nationally to understand best practice and how we're able to support and prevent violence against women and girls. So we very much undertake that. We have a fourth plan that we are actively engaged in, and it's very much partnership led as well, which I'll touch on and then hand over to Kelly around that as well. I'll touch on our local policing teams. It's very much a focus and a priority for the force to be able to respond to that. We work with the universities as well to give education. We're in schools and university to provide education around to females, but also to males around acceptable behaviour as well. And within the community safety partnership, which I touched on earlier, which I chair, it is a priority for us as well to be able to respond to collectively. And we've also just recently given some funding around safe spaces to identify safe spaces in the community for anybody who may be feeling vulnerable, that they can go to be able to feel and support. But if I bring in Kelly, because through the local authority, it's very much a priority for yourselves as well.
Thanks, Heather. Thank you. I thought it would be helpful to just, you've already clarified, Heather, that we have violence against women and girls as a priority within our community safety partnership. So that's all of those public agency partners working together, but also really importantly, working with the community. So working with local businesses, working with the universities, education establishments. Our absolutely key aim is to make sure that we are working together, all of us, to make sure that our places are as safe as possible. There's loads of really good work that's happening in that space, and one of the questions was around how we report back on how our progress is measured and how we report back on that. So there are a number of different performance indicators, if you like, but measures around, we would expect to see a reduction in domestic abuse, we would expect to see a reduction around sexual exploitation or sexual violence, and those sorts of things through our community safety are very much monitored as part of our work that we do together. And there is, if you go to www.saferbcp.co.uk, that is our community safety partnership website. All of our information is there in terms of what we're prioritising, and then those the performance indicators that help demonstrate those measures of our success are there too.
Great, thanks, Kelly, for that. We'll go to the next question, please. So a question from Hazel Davis. What's your answer to the national press labelling Bournemouth going into a terminal decline with 100 rapes and 300 stabbings as reported yesterday? Are you ashamed? Heather, do you want to come in and just provide some context on this?
All right, so yes, we will be at some point responding to that. So I want to give you some reassurance where they within some of the context. Now, some of that data that they have taken is taken through other press releases that have been nationally. It's through some data that they've obtained through other means. So when you put it all together, it's the context is not there around what's actually happening. So when they talk about 300 stabbings, I can absolutely say that is incorrect. Now, we've had last year, excuse me, my voice is going. Last year we had, let me just find, because I want to get this absolutely right, 296 flagged crime reports that were flagged for a knife. Now that is what they're reporting on by saying it's 300 stabbings. That is incorrect. So actually that could be anything from police officers actively stop searching somebody and locating a knife and therefore they are arrested. It could be somebody just happened to have a knife in their bag and we just flag it on our crime, but it's not necessarily an offence. It could be because Bournemouth Police Station is based within Bournemouth Town Centre, that somebody has been arrested elsewhere, as brought to Bournemouth Police Station, and at that point it's flagged as a Bournemouth crime. So there is some crime reporting detail and context that within that's not reported. What I can say as well is that when it says 300 stabbings across the whole of the BCP area in the past 12 months, there were 29, and four were within the Bournemouth town centre. And I can say that the vast majority, if not all of those, are where there have been associations between people, is all I will say on it. So the fact of stranger stabbings is extremely low risk at all. Now, that's not to say it can never happen. We've been friends throughout, but I want to reassure you that we have not had 300 stabbings as a force. And the rape data, we will respond as a force to that. But all I will say is there are inaccuracies within that data and the context with that we will respond to separately.
Thanks, Heather, for that clarity. Appreciate there's context behind that reporting, etc. David, do you want to come in from your perspective on that?
I do, thank you, because I saw those reports as well, and I was confused about those numbers. And thank you, Heather, for putting them into context. But I think there's something else here as well. We need to get that message out about that context, because otherwise this will also be a factor in people feeling unsafe. So I think I'd be really interested to make certain that we have a communications plan in order to address that going forward. Because I know from the point of view of the statistics where we stand nationally. And I think that needs to be put into context as well. So I just wanted to make that point, because that also leads into people feeling unsafe.
Yeah, thanks, David. And I can give reassurance that's something that I'm taking forwards with various business partners, and obviously Heather and I are discussing that, which we'll take up and progress, as well as engaging with wider stakeholders, communities, businesses, etc. in the area to provide that context and clarity and reassurance, because Dorset remains a safe place for us and those that live and those that visit. Okay, of course, we've already said we can't really go into the detail of anything around the current murder investigation. It'd be improper for us to do that. So hence we can't really go into further specifics as we've already outlined. If we can take the next question, please. So Dan Short, are there any plans for Poole railway station? I'm not sure the context of what you're asking the question on, Dan, but Sophie, from a local authority perspective, do you want to come into that and give us some context?
Yeah, I think that probably follows on from the previous question about the CSAS officers on the buses. So the CSAS officers do also cover Poole travel interchange and Poole railway station as a hotspot. We also have done a lot of work with South West Rail around working together and collaborative working. And I know obviously Dorset Police do a lot of work around with British Transport Police as well. So it is a collaborative partnership. We are working together and we do offer the coverage to the railway station as well. So South West Rail do have their own safety-based officers with accreditation under the Railway Accreditation Scheme, very similar to CSAS. But we work alongside them, and then we also give them support as well.
Great, thanks. And from a policing perspective, so we'll move on to the next question, Dan. We work very closely with the British Transport Police as well in how we police the railways around things. Can we have the next question, please? So Julian Singh, how do BCP and Dorset Police plan to challenge the perception that the police don't bother responding? So I'm not going to bother to report. Heather, one for you.
Thank you. So I'm hoping events like this will be will be really helpful. We put it out in the press an awful lot. I know through the Police and Crime Commissioners, through his community engagement, he says the same thing. The local authority will say the same thing. So if you've got any better ideas that you're able to share with us of how we can really get the public to understand that it's so important that they tell us these things, we're open to further suggestions or further ways of reaching out to people via technology. Because as I say, we use social media, we use press releases, we do it through our local neighbourhood policing teams, through community engagements. We have community contact points where we advertise them online, where the public can come and speak to us directly. We have single online home reporting. You can report into make contact with the Police and Crime Commission or the local authority. So there are countless different ways. But I'll reiterate, I'm hoping events like this, and please you share that, you're asking these questions to those that you live and work with. It's really important that people do report crime to us. You can do it anonymously, Crime Stoppers, you put things in, well, there's other ways of reporting things into policing and into the local authority. It really helps us understand, and when I talk about the hotspot policing, this is how, it changes our policing response. We need you to be able to tell us exactly where these things are happening, where your concern is, so we can adapt and our joint responses to all of that. So hopefully that might help.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. David, I'll bring you in.
Yeah, so this is something which I'm really trying to help change, is that perception. From the point of view of the what I'm doing, I'm making as much noise as possible about the need for reporting, because it's about the intelligence and also about the resources. But let's be clear, it does work. I'll give you a single example. There is something called Operation Scorpion, which is run where the five forces in the southwest come together to address the issue of illegal drug dealing on our streets. And the last iteration, there was an intelligence campaign before that where we asked people to report. And it was only because of that community reporting that they had the successes which Heather spoke to earlier. Around about 34 people, I think, were arrested during that process. It really, really does have an effect. And I think the challenge, if I go back to what I was saying earlier around communication, is we need to link directly more often the results that the police are getting to where that came from, where that community intelligence came from, where we can. So I think that's just the piece I'd like to add to it. It's really, really important. And I know that there's been negative comments recently about nothing ever happens, but actually it does. So we need to keep doing it, because the only way to be certain that there is nothing happening is not to report.
Great, thanks, David. And I think it's important, whilst people submit intelligence to us, we can't respond to every piece of intelligence, but what we do is those small pieces of intelligence make up the bigger picture, which means then we take that action, which then enables us to get warrants to search people, into people's premises for drug supply, etc., or deal with wider criminality. So it's really, really important that people do report to us, and every piece of information that comes into force gets assessed and gets the appropriate response that's required to it, including crime recording. If we can go to the next question, please. So Sharon Williams, how can parents of teenagers be reassured their children will be safe in our town centres, and that if their child has a problem, the police will respond? Heather, do you want to start us off with that one?
Yes, absolutely. So yes, I'd like to reassure your children are safe. Bournemouth Town Centre is a safe area to go. As I've alluded to earlier, I have children and they are in the town centre as well. But again, I recognise, I say how you're feeling, and as a mother as well, I get it. But I think to reassure you around my response around the uplift of police officers in the town centre. So if your children or your teenagers are feeling unsafe or have someone to report to, there should be a visible presence there. Certainly within the nighttime economy, I'm not sure how old they are, but if they are there of an evening, of the weekend, certainly throughout the summer, we have another operation in that particular area in the gardens to focus around sort of our younger children within that area, to be able to support them and bring down antisocial behaviour so they feel safe. I've talked about what we do on the beaches as well. But if your child feels unsafe or something's happening to them, 999, absolutely, we will respond to them. So please be reassured, the area is a nice place, a safe place to visit, and police will respond should they need him.
Great, thanks. Kelly, do you want to come in from a wider local authority? Because I'm really conscious the CCTV centre as well has direct contact with the police as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Sophie talked about earlier, the CCTV cameras provide us with those those sort of eyes to be able to understand what's happening and to monitor and to pick up issues of risk. But I just wanted to talk a little bit more in terms of the work that we do around education, particularly around knife crime, educating young people. There's lots of engagement out to local schools, particularly at the moment through our knife crime awareness programme. And also there's support and resources that are available for parents. I'm sure we can add some links to some of the to some of that after the event and make sure that people can access those. We're working with a really broad range of partners, which really gives us that kind of wraparound approach in terms of not just coming from the police perspective or the local authority. We're working with community leaders and making sure that we really do have, we're trying to get to the cause of the cause and really prevent issues from happening in terms of knife crime and those sorts of issues. As Heather said, our town centres and our places where children will congregate are generally safe. And unfortunately, there are young people who will be carrying knives, and we are doing the best that we can in terms of making sure that we are helping people to understand the consequences of that, and helping people to understand the dangers around that. So it's part of an ongoing piece of work that's very much live as I speak.
Great, thanks for that, Kelly. And David, do you want to come in and just provide some context from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from the point of view of there is now new capability in town from the police's point of view. They have knife wands in every patrol car, so it is easier for them to actually search for knives. And they also have knife arches. You may have seen in the press recently that those have been deployed. So those portable knife arches will be deployed both for an educational purpose and also obviously in order to try and reduce the number of knives. There's also a Safer Schools initiative which has been going on, talking about knife crime in the schools. And the other point I'll make is that it's well known that I've been calling for a violence reduction unit. What that means is that you have a public health approach to reducing knife crime with our young people. The background to knife crime offences is very complex. The reasons they carry them is very complex. We need to reduce that. And what the violence reduction unit will bring is it will be a multi-partner agency working at its best to actually take the education, awareness and initiatives to our young people. I've actually approved a new team in my office, including a violence reduction and prevention manager, in order to start the process of making certain that we build that. Because getting this long-term effect is how we will address the issue of violence in our society generally. So I just wanted to add that context from the long-term part of the equation.
Thanks, David. And obviously, the VRU and you campaigning to get more funds for Dorset is really appreciated. And obviously, not taking away from the fact that the Community Safety Partnership has got a significant statutory duty and strategy around violence, which is public health approach, is a key part of it. So absolutely, really good that we're trying to progress those areas around violence and preventing violence. And as Kelly said, really getting upstream and trying to prevent this and understand the cause of the cause rather than just treating the symptoms is key across the partnership and something we're really, really committed to across our communities. But we do need the communities to help us with that. It's not just for the police and the local authority and the PCC. We really need that community intelligence, that community consensus, and to be able to make sure that we take knives off the streets and prevent people being harmed around that perspective. We normally sort of end in about an hour, but we've got quite a few extra, questions. So everyone's agreed that actually we'll just stay on and take a few more questions for a short period of time before we sort of wrap up this evening. So the next question is from Adele Campbell. The visible response on foot, cars can't get everywhere, needs to be in quieter areas and not just the hotspots. Heather, do you want to come in and just talk about the wider policing approach?
Yeah, again, so I touched on it earlier to say why sometimes police officers are in police cars. It's because we have to cover a large geographical area to go and see people. In the quieter areas, yes, ideally we would love to have police presence on foot in all of those areas, but we have to be sometimes realistic around the foot patrol element of it. If it's a lower crime area, and again, the community not telling us there's any particular instances, then we will sometimes target our resources and our police officers in areas of higher criminality and higher antisocial behaviour. So we try to be able to manage how many officers we have on patrol. That's why we can call on forthright resources again to patrol in those areas. So they do come across from other parts of Dorset, which is why obviously they'll bring their car with them to be able to get across to the local area. The local neighbourhood teams are the ones who will link in with the communities to understand what's actually happening and where they need to be most. So I would urge you please to maybe make contact through the community contact forums, or you can get in contact online with the local neighbourhood teams if you've got a specific area that you go, actually we want a visible presence, foot patrol presence in particular, because of for whatever reason that you're feeling it's happening. But as Dave too alluded to earlier, we are on foot patrol in a lot of areas and we can't be visible all the time to absolutely everyone, and we absolutely try our best with the numbers that we have to be out there in those communities, but we do have to sometimes focus on the areas of the higher criminality, higher antisocial behaviour, so we can make the most impact within those areas to drive those crimes and behaviours down. But I absolutely get your point, and hopefully if there's anything happening in those areas, then please, I urge you get into contact with us so we can have a discussion with you separately.
Great, thanks, Heather. Sophie, did you want to add some from that as well? Yeah,
so completely recognise there's probably been quite a lot of conversations that we've had this evening about Bournemouth Town Centre, Poole Town Centre. We, as a local authority, as well as the police force, we manage the entire conurbation. So our resources that we have go across all of Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. We do have officers in Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, not just our town centres, but wider afield. As I said earlier, we've got over 1,200 CCTV cameras in our public open spaces in our core council assets. So that is across the entirety of the conurbation. There's a public list if people want to access that. And that, again, supports the what's going on the ground. The CCTV service, as I said earlier, 24 hours a day, and they are the eyes of exactly what's going on across the conurbation. They're completely invaluable to the work that we do around crime prevention and disorder prevention. So everything that we do is pan conurbation, and we take the same approach in Bournemouth Town Centre as we do on Winton High Street, for example. So when I talked earlier about the additional CSAS officers that we've had out and about, they're covering a lot of the areas that might not be considered hotspots. They're out and about into Winton High Street, Charminster High Street. They're out and about into Christchurch. They're out and about into Somerford. They're out and about into Turlinmore, Poole, Ashley Road, all of those different places, and they are really there to see exactly what's going on as well, and tackle those issues when they're seeing them happening. So, you know, we do work on intelligence led, as do the police, as has been said this evening. We do need those reports to know exactly what's going on and where it is. So please report, but just a little bit of reassurance that we are working across the entirety of Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole.
Thanks, Sophie, for that. Right, we'll go to the next question, please. So, Chris Gumbrell, what other areas who have had success with clear hold bill strategies are you working with or talking to learn from experience and share best practice? Heather?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, so Clear Hold Build is a national initiative. It was first undertaken and sort of created within in the northern part of the country. So because that, it's a Home Office led initiative. So Dorset is very much part of a national working group where we obviously understand best practice. We understand how they've gone through it, what's worked for in those communities, what hasn't necessarily worked so well. So we're not doing this alone. We're not starting from scratch. We've got good experience and good evidence from other areas across the country that have been through this already, but that had high deprivation areas, high criminality areas, considerably more complex and crime than we experience it in Dorset, or will ever experience in Dorset. So we're taking how they've done that, what their approach they took, and we're implementing that into the local context, so we can bring down crime and antisocial behaviour. So absolutely, we are working on it with our national colleagues across the Home Office and across policing to be able to go through that work.
Great, thanks, Heather. And I think, as people would expect, we work really closely with our Southwest, our neighbouring forces in the Southwest, and certainly myself, Heather, and others have regular contact through the respective partnership work and cross-policing that we have, because it's obviously other force areas have got clear hold build within the Southwest that we're utilising and supporting where there's best practice as well. If we could have the next question. So Sharon Williams, why do we have to report a crime online? Don't assume everyone has either the facility or skills to do this. Heather, are you able to answer that?
Yeah, so I know we have 101 as well that we're able to do that. So people can ring us. You can write in to us as well. It's not the quickest response to be able to do that, but this is where the community contact points are really important. So you can go and speak to your local neighbourhood teams. You can go and speak to your local PCSOs. I would also ask, if people are struggling to have that, then they speak to friends, family, people can report things on your behalf. There are people within the local authority that you can make contact with on the phone as well to report if it's antisocial behaviour within their antisocial behaviour team. I don't want to step on the council's toes around their reporting ways, but there are certainly, it's not all about online. So we do have the phone as well, and through those contact points with the local policing teams and the local authority. I don't know if anyone in the local authority wants to comment on that as well.
Yeah, so thanks, Mark. So yeah, as Heather's just said, people can report to us online as well. So on the BCP Council website, there is a reporting function to make contact with us as a local authority. We also have pages dedicated to antisocial behaviour, as well as the other initiatives that we run as well. So you can find out all the information on how you directly report to us online. We need the detail. We need to know what's happening. We need to know where it's happening. If you can give us as much detail as possible, that helps us significantly when we're looking at taking further action. So tell us how that has impacted you. Tell us what's going on, where it's going on, give us descriptions, and then we work really closely with the police to share that data between us and build that picture. And between us, if we've got 5 reports that are all giving us a little bit of the picture, then we can build a much bigger picture together, and then we can tackle it.
Thanks. So I think what we're trying to do is say, trying to as many channels for the public into us as possible, face-to-face, telephone, online. They all get similar responses in terms of timeliness, and we appreciate it goes back to the early question about 101 timelines, etc. We're just trying to create different contacts for different people and how they work, and that even extends to how we then engage and investigate crime later on. We're developing we've done a pilot and we're rolling out across the force how we do video contact with victims as well. So actually that's offering, it's a choice, but we're offering face-to-face officers deploy over the telephone, some other digital contact, but also dealing with victims if they wish over the internet from a face-to-face interview with some new technology that we've developed and that we're leading the way on. And there's also just the telephone number of the ASB phone line for BCP local authority, and you can get that off the internet, but I'll quickly read it out. It's 01202 128 883. That's 01202 128 883. Brett, let's move to the next question, please. So, Rob Acom, I feel transparency around reported crimes to attend crimes ratio would help. Monthly infographics on social channels. I'm just looking, David, is this something that you want to talk about from your perspective first in terms of the PCC in relation to?
So from the point of view of transparency around the data, I'm very, very clear that I'd like to see as much as possible about that. The actual mechanisms and how that's done, though, isn't within my gift. I don't have the data around operations. I don't have the data around crimes. So really, Mark, I think that's one for the for yourself and Force Comms as to how best to actually tell the public about what you do. I'm very clear, though, that the issues that we've recently had with context is something which we need to address going forward and make certain that we actually control the data from the point of view of setting it in the context whenever it goes out, because otherwise there's dialogues which will be detrimental to people's safety.
Great, thank you. And Heather, anything you wanted to add?
Yes, yeah. So transparency is absolutely right. We publish data annually around reported crimes. Dave's right. There again, we've just seen around. Sometimes these can be taken out of context if we don't give you the numbers and the detail to understand, because crime is recorded in very specific ways at a national level. But we do publish our crime figures. We do have scrutiny panels with community members as well, where we share some of that wider data and we talk about that. Our partners are very much so within the Community Safety Partnership. We published recently our serious violence duty, which again really has a lot of detail around the crime levels how we're focusing and the context that goes with some of that. So that's published and that's on the BCP website. Local neighbourhood teams, we publish each month a sway, which is on Technology Online, a newsletter. If you want to be part of that, let us know. That gives you the details, what the local neighbourhood teams are doing, what, again, an opportunity for them to share all that information. Communication's really key. It's really important to us that we try and reach out as best as possible. So again, my ask to people is, if you feel there's a better way in which we can let you know and inform you, please do let us know so we can build that into how we do that. You can also sign up to Dorset Alert as well, where you get a lot of that information around it. But yes, we do report that data annually, and we try to put the context in. But hopefully some of those things that I've told you there are ways that you can get further information.
Thanks, Heather. That's a really good summary in terms of the data that we've got and where can people find it. And we, of course, have freedom of information inquiries as well that people submit to us. And I think, obviously, wider than that, there's quite a lot of scrutiny as well. So we are transparent. Legitimacy is very, very important so that in our policing response. And we have lots of scrutiny using our independent advisory groups as well. Independent scrutiny groups that come and look at custody, work around stop search, etc., which is something which is we've really developed over the last few years. And if anybody's interested in becoming part of one of our IAGs, our independent advisory groups, then have a look on our website, and we're really interested in people coming forward to be part of those, because that way we can discuss with you policies, the types of things that we're doing in policing, which you can then become involved in and give a view. Obviously, a big part of that scrutiny in particular is also from the PCC as well, the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, very clear about their level of scrutiny and the support they do, which is holding the police into account to make sure that we're delivering in the right areas and delivering the police and crime plan. And the force policing priorities, which is very important. After all, that is what you've asked asked the police to focus on in terms of your community challenges and issues in our communities. So we're going to take this one as the last question of the evening. But we really appreciate all the comments and questions that have been put on there. But the question is from Ronald Barr. Will there be any further Q&As or opportunities for the public to ask questions? There are a lot of areas that have been mentioned in the comments that haven't yet been touched on due to the limited time. So I think probably if I answer this one in terms of further, these types of events are absolutely something we want to continue doing. This isn't the first event we've done like this. We've done many before, and they range from some local neighbourhood inspector and local partnership level live sessions up to these types of sessions with the PCC and senior leaders from policing and also from the local authority. So absolutely, it's something that we want to do because we want to engage and involve our communities. So that's something that we will look to progress as we go forwards. As to all the questions, we will go through all the questions. We'll try and answer as many of those questions that we can. It's not always possible to answer all of them, but actually all your questions will be read. So all those questions then feed in to our partnership working, so we can understand and use that data with other data, such as the surveys that we do with communities, the information we get from the community safety staff on the ground, and also with our PCSOs and neighbourhood officers, and through the OPCC, through the engagements that the PCC's team have. We can then make sure we understand the themes in the areas, so we can then respond and add that to the bigger picture around it. And so absolutely, really appreciate everyone's attendance tonight and support. I'm going to hand over to the PCC, David Sidwick now, for him to close the session. Over to you, David.
Thank you very much. I'll just finish off that little piece. I'm very up for doing more of these on different subjects. I think it's really, really important. I'll also give a commitment. We'll look at the questions and make certain that any threads which come out, which we haven't discussed in depth, we make certain that are discussed and addressed. Look, thank you very much indeed to all the partners for coming on this Facebook Live. It was really important to do this. The trigger was something which none of us would have wanted, and we have to give meaning to that. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I hope we've been able, by showing the extent of the work that is going on, to provide some reassurance to you this evening. It's very clear there are a lot of initiatives, some which have been put in place already, but as you heard, there are some significant ones which are also coming forward in the very near future, and not least the increase in officers. So I'd basically like to thank you for listening to us, so as we can show you that we're all working together. I'm very clear about the determination from the partners. You will know my police and crime plan has as priority 3 to reduce violence and high harm. I'm determined we're going to do it. I'm determined we're going to make our county a safer place. And with a bit of luck, we will get it to be the safest place in the UK. That's the vision. So thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.